doesn't make its endorsement based on what's good for the community. They make their endorsement on what's good for them. In my primary election, when I ran for sheriff candidate as a Republican against 3 other opponents, they picked the one candidate in the race that they thought Ed Gonzalez could beat. And they endorsed him instead of me. Because it wasn't in their advantage to do that. It would be in their advantage to have a weaker Republican candidate than a stronger Republican candidate. And that's okay. That's just a little background of what's going on in the world around us today. Now let me ask you a question. Do you feel safe where you travel across the Harris County? Do you feel safe going to the ATM and getting money out of it? Do you feel safe going to the grocery store and coming home? Do you look in your rearview mirror to see if somebody's following you home? Are you familiar, or do you enjoy watching the news where every story is something about crime going on? Didn't used to be this way. I grew up here in Houston, Texas. I was born here in 1958. And I've seen a lot of changes over the years. Crime is not a Republican or Democrat issue. Crime is an issue for everybody. And what we have right now is a group of people in the Commissioner's Court and in the Sheriff's Department who have an idea that, I call it appeasement. If we are just nice to the criminals, they will stop committing crime. Well, we have a historical preference. We have a historical precedent for this. It's called World War II. And there was a prime minister in England called Chamberlain, Mr. Chamberlain, who was a big appeaser. He appeased Hitler. Because if we're nice to Hitler, then Hitler won't attack British. They won't attack England. Well, that didn't work out very well for Chamberlain. And they ended up firing him and hiring Winston Churchill, who stopped that process, who stood firm, who stood against the tyranny and the evil that was coming their way from Germany. And we all got involved, and you know the history of all that. The same is true with crime. Now, you'll hear a lot of police officials and commissioners' court talking about, well, we need to do these creative programs. There's a program called SEPTED, which is crime prevention through environmental design. In fact, Harris County commissioners spent $62 million of your dollars to reduce crime by putting lights up and trimming bushes. Do you know how many deputies $62 million could buy? You know how many more deputies we could have roaming around the streets protecting neighborhoods? Did you know that right now in Harris County, the constable precincts, great bunch of people, they get hired by neighborhoods to patrol neighborhoods, and they stay in those neighborhoods. You know the crime rate in a constable precinct where they have a deputy regularly in patrol in that neighborhood is a minimum of 30% lower than the surrounding county. You know why? Can you guess? It's because there's somebody driving around paying attention. There's only one cure to our crime problem. If you want to reduce crime, you have to have boots on the ground. You have to have, look, in law enforcement, we have what we call the rule of 10. And that is 10% of any population will commit a felony if they believe that they won't get caught, or if they do get caught, they won't be held to account. They'll get away with it. Now, there are 4.7 million people that live in Harris County. That means there are 470,000 people out there willing to commit a felony if they think they can get away with it. All right? 1% of that population, 47,000, are going to be career criminals. These are people that have chosen they chose to pay their bills and feed their families through crime. This is what they do. These are drug dealers, and burglars, and thieves, and all kinds of stuff. 1% of that's 47,000 people. Our county jail only holds 10,000 inmates if we have every bed full. All right? So we're way behind the curve on all of that. We need a sheriff who understands these things, who can get in there and actually speak to Commissioner's Court in a way that they can understand and make them clear that they have a constitutional duty. There are 2 jobs that a sheriff is required to do under the Texas Constitution. First of these is to operate the county jail. Isn't that interesting that the sheriff's job isn't first to enforce the law? His first job is to operate the county jail. Our current sheriff is failing at that miserably. In fact, we haven't been able to successfully pass a jail inspection from the Commission on Jails in Texas in over 4 years. We just passed one recently, but until then, we haven't been passing any of them. Now that means the Jail Commission limits the number of beds and spaces that we can have inmates in. It has to do with the ratio of guards to inmates. 1 guard for every 48 inmates. The sheriff is unable to maintain a staffing requirement that allows us to use all of the beds in the jails. So we send about 3,000 to 4,000 to other jails, private jails, in places like Louisiana and Mississippi and other places in Texas, to the tune of $52 million a year. That is $1 million a week out of your pocket that we're paying somebody else to house prisoners that we have the room for, but we don't have permission to have because we can't pass an inspection. That is mismanagement at the very least. I'm telling you all this because the condition of the jail is because the sheriff, our current sheriff, Ed Gonzalez, is frankly incompetent. There's a concept that I use, it's called designed incompetence. This is where a company or an individual hires someone that they know is going to be incompetent because they have some design on getting rid of that job. So they hire someone incompetent to make a big mess of it and can get rid of it. We saw that when the Harris County Commissioners Court hired a series of election administrators who were incompetent and mismanaged the court system. Now their defense was, well, we thought they could do it, so they messed up. It's not our fault. We didn't do this by design. It was just an accident. The first election administrator was so bad that even the Democratic Party wanted her out of there. They ended up firing her and hiring this new guy, Chris Collins, who came from Washington, D.C. And let me just say how this works. In Washington, D.C., Chris Collins was responsible for election. He was the election coordinator in Washington, D.C. There are 17 voting locations in Washington, D.C. 17. Because he had experience, they hired him to come to Harris County to work in Harris County, where there are 760 voting locations that all have to be manned and materials and everything delivered. The logistics of that is tremendously more large than 17. And we were surprised when he failed. I wasn't. Anybody that knew about elections knew that that was going to be the case. And in that chaos, there was confusion. And some people alleged there was opportunities to cheat, all kinds of stuff. It doesn't matter whether it was cheating going on or not. It's the fact that it was so confusing, nobody could really understand why or how. Your sheriff's job is to keep a safe jail. Now, right now in the Harris County Jail, 2.5 people die per month. I don't know about the half person, I don't know where they get that from. But on average, 2.5 people a month die in the Harris County Jail in custody. And they don't die from violence from other inmates. They don't die from abuse by the guards. They die from drug overdoses. They die because they're not getting the medication that they need. It is the responsibility of every sheriff to protect the rights of every person in the county, whether they're accused of a crime or not. And our sheriff just doesn't care. He never shows up at the jail commission hearings when they talk about the deficiencies in his jail. He always sends a subordinate to fade the heat. He sends a subordinate not to face the music because he doesn't want to. He doesn't care. Most of these deaths that occur, like for example, a lack of medication, this is a lack of supervision from the top all the way to the bottom, a lack of accountability from the top to the bottom. The jail guard sees a person that needs medication. He makes a call to Harris Health, which, by the way, the jail used to have a doctor and a couple of nurses on staff 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if there was a problem, they could issue medications and do what they needed to do to keep them alive. But, they decided that was too expensive, so the Commissioners Court hired Harris Health to take care of the medical needs of the county. Now, they're not on site. So what happens is the guard calls Harris Health to order a doctor to come over and see this guy and give him some medication. And somehow the message doesn't get there. Now here's the lack of supervision. The guard hangs up the phone marks on his record that he contacted Harris Health, and he doesn't worry about it ever. A week goes by, 2 weeks goes by, nobody checks back to see if this guy or this woman gets her medication. And in the middle of the night, they die. That's because the supervisor didn't go back behind that jail guard and say, what about this guy? Has he got his medicine yet? If not, we need to call somebody again. And we need to do that every few hours until we get somebody down here to take care of that. It's not hard. Taking care of people in the jail is difficult, but it's not rocket science. It is paying attention to the little details. There are guards in there when people come into the JPC, which is the Joint Processing Center, to bring a prisoner into the jail, who are sitting there on their cell phones playing video games until a sufficient number of inmates come in for processing that they feel it's worth their time to get up and do the paperwork. That's a lack of supervision. And that needs to stop from the top to the bottom. I'm sure the sheriff is unaware of what some of his subordinates are doing because he's never there. They call him No-Show Joe. And I don't know why they call him Joe, but his name is Ed. But they just call him No-Show. He's never around. He's never around. He just doesn't do anything. So we need somebody who's going to do that. My job as a sheriff under the Constitution is to protect your rights from enemies, foreign and domestic. That means invaders from other countries. That means border control. We are in Houston, Texas, in Harris County. We don't think of ourselves on the border, but we have 300,000 illegal immigrants pouring into our county every year or more. These are the ones we know about, and nobody's doing anything about it. Our current sheriff testified. Well, he canceled the 287G program, which is a federal program where actually the guards were trained to do citizenship investigation on people that's been arrested and charged with a crime to see if they were here legally or not. And if they weren't, ICE was notified and they put a detainer on them, or ICE came and sent them back to where they belong. It's not like we're going out in the neighborhood just jacking people up and seeing if they're citizens or not. These are people that got arrested and brought before or introduced to the criminal justice system. He canceled that program. So now we have no idea how many inmates in that jail are here legally or illegally. And they claim that that's because we don't want to be racist. Well, here's the problem. It's the federal government's job to enforce immigration law. If we're doing the federal government's job for them by feeding, clothing, housing, medicating, dealing with these inmates in our jail at your cost, seems to me the federal government should foot that bill. I need to know as a sheriff how many of these inmates are in that condition so that I can send a bill to the federal government and get your money back. All right? Since Bill 4 has come up, the Texas legislature passed this in the last legislative session that gives sheriffs the authority to conduct citizenship investigations, and where ICE won't participate in a deportation, the state of Texas will. We need a sheriff willing to do that. And we need the word to get out that criminals are not welcome in Harris County. Montgomery County put a sign up. Entering Montgomery County, we prosecute criminals. And there are criminals coming from all over the region to commit crimes in Harris County. Do you know why? Because we don't. Again, I said it's boots on the ground. If you want to impact crime, people need to believe that they'll get caught, that if they are caught, that they'll get punished, and there will be consequences for their action. Then 470,000 of them will stop committing crime. Let me tell you this, if all we had to deal with were the 47,000 career criminals that we know exist in Harris County, you would not even notice crime. It wouldn't be on your radar at all. You would think that you lived in paradise. Because 47,000 in a population of 4.7 million can't commit enough crime for you to notice. All right? But we don't, because we're busy trying to appease criminals. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make sure. The second job is to enforce the law. That's what we're going to do. The third job that's not written in the Constitution is that your sheriff has an obligation to be your spokesperson with the Commissioner's Court to protect your safety. That person needs to be courageous enough to stand before 4 commissioners and tell them, you need to do this. If you don't do this, as the leading law enforcement officer in the county, in Harris County, I'm telling you, we need more deputies, we need more guards, we need better pay, we need these things. And you have a constitutional obligation to provide them. If you do not provide them, you are being negligent in your duty under your responsibilities under the Constitution, and you should probably resign because you're just being ineffective. We need to make these cases. I was told by one of the commissioners on court that they have never denied Sheriff Gonzalez anything that he's ever asked for. Anything he asks for, they give it to him. Problem is, he doesn't ever ask. We need somebody who wants to ask. We need somebody who can stand up and say, look, I'm worried about these people. My guards are going to understand from day one their responsibility is the life and health and safety and welfare of every person under their control. And they're going to be held accountable if something bad happens to them. And I will make that so. So we've got a long road ahead of us. I can tell you that I won't be able to fix the jail and I won't be able to fix the sheriff's department probably in one term. But on day one, it's going to start getting better. And hopefully by the time I'm done being sheriff, I won't have to worry about it. It'll be a well-oiled machine. Everybody will have their day in court. You know, under the Constitution, we have the right to certain constitutional rights. And among them are that you have a right to due process of law, that you have a right to face your accusers, that you have a right to appear in court in a timely manner, a speedy trial, if you will. We've got one inmate in Harris County Jail who's been in there for 18 years on a felony offense of murder, and they can't bring him to trial. 18 years because he has a mental condition, right? And so they can't certify him as competent to stand trial. That's something that needs to be addressed by the Texas legislature. We need a place to send this guy because we're not ever going to bring him to trial. But we can't let him out either. He's been accused of a crime and denied a speedy trial. He's been denied his opportunity to have his day in court. And let me just tell you this, as a basic rule of law enforcement, as a sheriff, it is my duty to make sure that you arrive alive for your day in court. If you find yourself in the county jail, you will find yourself alive on your day in court. Anyway, like I said, it's not rocket scientist. I'm excited about doing this. A little history, I was a Houston policeman for a long time, 15 and a half years. I wrote a book. I started the first gang unit in the city of Houston in 1988. I did that until 1995 when I wrote a book and went on the speaking circuit and spent 22 years as a consultant with law enforcement, school districts, other communities on how to deal with gang and youth violence. And then I came back and became a city council member for 2 terms, 8 years. And that's where I discovered that my ability to make an impact is limited on council because I'm one of 16 council members. And my vote only counts as 1. And then as I'm in there watching what's going on in Harris County over these past number of years, I've realized that my impact as sheriff can have an immediate and long-lasting and productive impact because when I am the sheriff, the policies of the sheriff's department come from me. And I can make these changes. You know, our current sheriff, he's abandoned the whole jail. In fact, he's gotten the commissioner's court to actually form a committee to figure out what's wrong with the jail and how to fix it. But they were kind enough to put the sheriff on that committee. That's his job. If he wanted a committee, he should have formed one and led that committee and come up with the answers. That's his job. The commissioner's court is beginning to take over the role of the sheriff. That's not the way the Constitution was designed. A lot of people don't know this, but the sheriff of Harris County is of same rank as the county judge. The county judge is responsible to fund all the stuff of the county, but they're not involved in the prosecution. They're not involved in the health care. They're not involved. Their only job is to take care of roads, parks, bridges, that sort of thing. The rest of it, their duty is to fund the organizations that provide those other services. The only role that the Commissioners Court should have in the law enforcement side of the county government is to approve my budget. And I'm going to make sure they understand that clearly and loudly. Now, the good news. The good news is we're winning. I just got to tell you some of this. This is so much fun. So I was over in Brazewood here a while back. I went to a Super Neighborhood Club meeting, and I sat down in the back and just waiting my turn. This lady comes up to me. She says, "May I sit here?" And I said, "Sure." She sat down. She's a black lady, and she told me right away that she said, "You know what? I'm a Democratic precinct chair, and I'm going to vote for you, Mike Knox." I said, "Well, thank you." He said, "In fact, I'm going to have all my friends vote for you, and I'm going to have my other precinct chair friends vote for you. You know why?" And I said, "I'd love to know why. Please tell me." "I hate that Ed Gonzalez. Ed Gonzalez is killing their children. They're killing their brothers and their fathers. They're killing their husbands in this jail, and people are tired of it. The people of Harris County are sick and tired of crime. On the O'Donnell decision, that's the bail thing. Do you know that the sheriff of Harris County testified before a federal court judge and said, essentially, that if we implement this program, it will have no impact on crime in Harris County? He should tell that to the more than 200 murder victims who've been killed by people out on bond for more than 2 bonds at a time for other violent offenses because they were released by judges who want to appease criminals. We've got to stop this appeasement. We couldn't defend ourselves from Hitler in World War II until we decided that we needed to stand and fight. You want to be safe in Harris County, it's time to stand and fight. You need a strong sheriff, for sure, but you need judges. The role of a law enforcement is simply to introduce people they suspected of committing crime to the criminal justice system. Then it's up to the prosecutors to prosecute them, and the judges, if they're convicted, to punish. Okay? That's the way the system works. You need all 3 legs of that stool at the same level so they work in harmony with one another. And the fact of the matter is, there's only one leg of that stool standing in its proper place, and that's law enforcement. The reason these cases are backlogged is because law enforcement hasn't stopped arresting people. Prosecutors are charging them, and judges are not convicting them and sending them away. So people in Harris County feel like, I can commit any crime I want. Worst I'm going to get, I'll be out in a couple hours on a PR bond. Y'all know what a PR bond is? That's a personal recognizance bond. And what it says is that you promise to appear. I call it a pinky swear bond. I promise you, Judge, I'm going to come back to court. Let me just tell you how damaging that is. Prior to all of this, you've got a bond. The bonding agent held something in collateral. Your mom's house, your grandmother's house, a car, whatever. And if you didn't show up in court, they have 180 days to return you to the courtroom, or they have to pay the bond. Guess who's looking for it? The bonding agent. He doesn't want to pay that money. He goes out and hunts you down. Now, you get a pinky swear bond, or a $100 bond, or a $300 bond, and you post the bond yourself. There's nobody. If you don't show up in court, there's nobody to come after you. We don't have enough policemen right now to respond to traffic accidents. We don't have time to go out and hunt down everybody that's not showing up in court. So they get a free pass until they get caught again. And until they get caught again, they're free to commit whatever crimes they want. This is the damage that's been done by our commissioners, by our sheriff, who said to the federal court, yeah, it's not a problem. It is a problem. If you can't trust a sheriff to look after your best interest, to protect your rights and safety, then you don't need that sheriff. You need me. And I'm happy to do it. I am a happy guy. I have a perfect day every day. I'm going to close with this. I'm going to give all of you an opportunity to have a perfect day every single day. No matter what's happening in your life, there's 3 things that have to happen. First, when you wake up in the morning, your eyes open. That means you're aware of your surroundings. That's a good thing. As you lay in bed there for a little while, you'll realize at some point that you're hungry. This means your body functions as it should overnight, and that your body's pretty healthy. Relatively healthy. That's a good thing, number 2. Then you look around the room, see if you can find a doorknob on your side. If you find that doorknob on your side, that probably means you're free to leave if you want to. You just woke up alive, healthy, and free. You've had a perfect day, and your feet have yet to touch the floor. Remember that. When things bad happen to you during the day, remember, today is still a perfect day. I'm going to take that attitude to the sheriff's office. We're going to uplift those deputies and those guards. We're going to make them happy to be where they are. We're going to give them a desire to perform their actual jobs instead of undercutting them and treating them like dirt and doing all the things that are going on right now. One more thing I'm going to ask you to do before I close. I have a cool little new political tool that I'm using right now. It's called a mobile yard sign. Have y'all ever heard of that? Mobile yard sign? You know, yard signs you put up during election season, but when it's over, you can take them off, right? Well, I've come up with an idea called a mobile yard sign. Many people refer to it as a bumper sticker. Now, these are magnets. These are magnet bumper stickers. You can stick them on your car, and at the end of the election cycle, you can just get rid of them if you want. Or they make great stuff for your refrigerator to hang on, you know, and that sort of thing. So I need everybody here tonight to take one with you if you want to support my platform about accountability and supervision and getting the job done. If you'll do that and ride around, and if you see somebody else with one, take a picture, put it on Facebook, and tag Mike Knox. And it'll come to me, and we'll have a whole area of my Facebook page with I Spot the Sheriff. Okay? It'll be